Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Shem, Vasha, could you guys tell me if everybody's in
Good
the
morning.
room?
Yes, you could go ahead and
All right,
uh,
great. Good morning, guys. Welcome to the second installment of the Small Business Workshop series. Today, we are addressing the fundamentals of personal money management. This is a program by the Trinidad and Tobago Entrepreneurship Hub in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy, Port of Spain. So we're just going to run through the presentation. I want to tell you guys a little bit about the EHub. It started back in 2020 on the 3rd of July. So we celebrated 6 years this year. So the hub basically promotes collaboration, consensus building, shared knowledge about the best business practices. Collectively, we are fostering a vibrant and sustainable entrepreneurial ecosystem to promote the ease of doing business to all entrepreneurial stakeholders in the region. The Entrepreneurship Hub has over 2,000 members going strong, supported by the embassy, local, regional, and foreign chambers of commerce and regional corporations collaborated with the banks of Trinidad and Tobago to ensure access to banking and finance is at least restrictive as possible. So the goals of the hub is to leverage local and foreign resources to solve the problems of micro entrepreneurs and small businesses. We work alongside key stakeholders in the entrepreneurial landscape to encourage collaboration to help entrepreneurs better understand the resources available to them. And we also foster collaboration amongst entrepreneurs because we have a good amount of WhatsApp groups. So we're going to share those links at the end of the session. Here are some of the resources that we've met so far. We have Fulbright scholars, mental wellness experts, NEDCO, Export TT. This is some of the programs that the Hub has worked with. We have the RISE program, the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs. The EHub also had an event, the financial literacy workshop with Dr. Joanne Flett. This was a very informative session. We had the Republic Bank come to share information on how to get small business loans, export readiness. And these are some of the small business workshops that we've had over the past 6 years. The Entrepreneurship Forum 2025 was the second year that we had that. This year, we are hoping to have it further down near to Entrepreneurship Month. So we hope to see some of you guys. We had a lot of guest speakers there. It was really an informative session, and I welcome all of you to try to attend. So what are we asking? We need your voice to be counted along with ours. We want you guys to join the Entrepreneurship Hub as we work together to bring more information to entrepreneurs and help as many entrepreneurs as we can. The Young Leaders of the America Initiative is the YLI program. So the course that we are doing today is from the Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative. It's a program hosted by the US Department of State. I actually did the program earlier this year. and it is a very informative educational program that helps entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 to 35. So if this is something that you may be interested in, you could stay tuned. We will share information on this as well. So this is the link that's going to take us to the course that we are doing today. But before I go to that, let me introduce myself. My name is Shereesa Khan. I'm the chemist and founder of Vortex Sensations Distribution Limited. Hopefully some of you guys know me. If you don't, welcome. I'm going to be a moderator today. And our guest speaker, Mr. Rollocks, business coach, financial consultant, certified trainer. Mr. Rollocks has over 25 years experience in financial everything. So he is here to help us, guide us, and give us as much information as we need. So let's go back. I want to start the course. Are you guys seeing?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. So, fundamentals of personal money management. I know a lot of us may need some help in that area. I for sure need some guidance. So let's jump right in. Now, this is the website for the Young Leaders of America's initiative. When we are finished, I'm going to show you how to navigate the site because there are other courses that you can take on the site as well. And yes, it is free. You get a certificate at the end. So let's begin. The first section is budgeting for your future. Please let me know if you guys could hear me, if you could hear the video as well. Are you hearing?
Yes, I am.
Great.
Yes.
For many of us, when we envision our future, we hope for success and the ability to live a comfortable life. We may see ourselves getting an education, buying a house, apartment, or car. Maybe even starting a business, getting married, and having children. There are many things that contribute to being able to accomplish these goals. But one of the most important is being able to manage your finances, and you cannot do that successfully without a plan. Welcome to Fundamentals of Personal Money Management. This lesson is budgeting for your future. My name is Juliana Charris. For several years, I have been a financial student ambassador for the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development. In this capacity, I work with college students on building their financial literacy skills to help them make sound financial decisions. The Society provides peer-to-peer training on budgeting, credit management, and investment to students across the United States. This course will take a look at the basics of personal money management. It will provide information and recommendations on developing skills to achieve your financial goals. And it will help you to identify and avoid behavior that adversely affects your financial well-being, with the aim of developing economic prosperity for individuals and communities. It is important to understand that every situation is unique. The decisions you make to improve your financial health are extremely personal and tied to your direct circumstances, especially when it comes to whether or not to work with a financial advisor and who you might choose in this capacity. The path you choose to improve your money management is up to you. I will be sharing these concepts with you in general terms. For information on your specific personal money management, you should consult a qualified financial professional. In this lesson, we will examine the 6 key money management concepts. They are budgeting, establishing financial goals, credit and debt management, saving, investing, and risk management or insurance. We will look at the steps to create an effective budget, understand different types of expenses, and how insurance is a tool to protect your finances and managing risk. I have learned that managing my finances and having a budget is an essential element of financial success. What comes to mind when you think about budgeting? Budgeting is sometimes seen as an activity that relates only to money. In reality, Creating a budget is just one of the many pieces involving much broader aspects of your life, including how to plan the use of your financial resources. Budgeting is a planning process for how to best use your money to ensure you have the financial resources for the things you need and that are important to you. Financial resources are a critical part of your financial well-being. There is nothing worse than the stress of worrying about where the money will come from to cover an expense. Budgeting requires identifying income sources to determine how you will use your money toward your expenses and personal goals. How can you set up a budget and make sure it is effective? Here are the primary steps to take. First, evaluate your personal values. How do you live? How do you want to live? What are your life goals? What are your financial goals? What is your relationship with money, debt, saving, and spending? Next, prioritize those values. Rank them in importance. Do you simply want to be debt-free, or would you like savings in case of a need or an emergency? Then, establish goals. What do you realistically want to achieve? And finally, distinguish between needs versus wants. What do you need to live and accomplish your goals compared to what are nice to have but not necessary to achieve your goals? Effective budgeting should focus on what's most important to you so that you can put a plan into effect that works at the different stages of your life. Planning for savings and spending must focus on the evaluation of your values, priorities, and goals. Budget planning also involves an accurate understanding of your income resources. When evaluating your income, consider all resources, including income from your job, self-employment, financial support from parents, alimony and child support, gifts, tax refunds, or investments. In addition, you should check your country's taxation laws and regulations, as this can differ from country to country. Now, let's break down a monthly budget. The best way to do this starts with creating a spreadsheet. First, identify your financial resources. Start by calculating your monthly income. Income is money that an individual or business receives in exchange for providing labor, producing a good or service, or investing money. Individuals most often earn income through wages or salary. Businesses earn income from selling goods or services above their cost of production. Whether your income fluctuates, is steady, or a combination of both, you should be able to calculate a monthly average based on your past earnings. Then list any investment income, alimony, child support, gifts, or other income you have. Next, consider what's important to you and prioritize expenses. When listing your expenses, divide them into 3 categories: fixed expenses, variable expenses, and discretionary expenses. Fixed expenses are those necessary and unavoidable expenses in which the amount you pay monthly does not vary. These include your mortgage payment or rent, property taxes, alimony and child support, and a car payment. Include any other fixed expense like insurance premiums or other loans or debt payments. Remember, these are the expenses for which you pay the same amount every month. Variable expenses are also necessary and unavoidable expenses, but the amount you have to pay can vary from month to month. These are a bit trickier than fixed expenses to budget for because the amounts change. Examples of variable expenses include utilities, groceries, public transportation, medicine, credit card payments, gasoline, clothing, and your cell phone bill, depending on your usage. In these cases, develop a best estimate for your budget, looking at what you've normally spent in the past. Finally, add your discretionary expenses. These are the avoidable expenses, the luxuries or nice-to-haves. They might include items such as entertainment like movies or concerts, eating out, games and recreation, gifts, and vacations. These are expenses that are not necessary for you to achieve your financial goals. Depending on those goals, you'll want to keep your discretionary expenses as low as possible on a monthly basis. Use them more as rewards for hitting some of your financial goals. Now, Use your budget to compare income versus expenses to see whether your monthly income covers your monthly expenses. It's time to do the math. If your income exceeds your expenses, you have a budget surplus. This is good. That means you have discretionary income or surplus income. If you have a surplus, it can be used to increase your savings and investments. If your expenses exceed your income, then you have a budget deficit. This means that you don't have enough income or resources to cover your planned expenses. The first place to look to address this deficit is in the discretionary spending section of your budget. These are expenses that you can adjust so that your spending decisions becomes aligned with your available resources. Determine which discretionary expenses to decrease or eliminate. Remember, be realistic about what you are willing to give up. If something is eliminated from your budget, this will require modifying your decisions, activities, and behaviors to correspond with that spending adjustment. For example, it is hard to save money in your
I've
food
been
budget
watching them.
if you don't change your habit of
I don't see them
regularly
getting
eating out
big. I see
or
them
ordering
small.
takeout. Keep in mind that your budget is a way to plan your spending and to help you use your money wisely toward what's most important and essential to you. Your plan for your money is intended to help you remain accountable for what you truly want and remain aligned with your goals and priorities. Monitor your budget regularly to see how well you're doing in sticking to your plans. Compare your actual income and spending each month with the budgeted amounts to identify the challenges in balancing your budget. Goals and priorities may need to be regularly reevaluated to see if a spending readjustment in certain categories is necessary. You should also keep in mind ways to optimize your income over time. Have a deficit spending problem? That's okay. Your budget can still be useful in helping you plan how to realign and prioritize available resources to keep you on your best financial footing. Surplus or deficit, your budget planning and planned budget can help highlight and guide what decisions and actions to focus on to improve your circumstances. By taking a thoughtful approach toward a plan to live within your financial means, your spending and saving decisions remain in line with your resources. Think of a budget as a tool for empowerment that keeps your focus on financial choices that support your goals. Insurance is another essential expense that should take priority over variable categories of spending. Insurance is an arrangement by which a company or government agency provides a guarantee of compensation for a specified loss, damage, illness, or death in return for a payment of a premium. Insurance is like an emergency fund. It protects your financial resources. It provides financial resources in the event of an unplanned incident like a natural disaster or accident. Examples of the type of insurance most individuals would carry include automobile insurance that will replace or repair your car in the event it is damaged, health insurance to cover medical expenses and hospitalization, business insurance to cover downturns in sales or productivity, and life insurance to cover funeral expenses and provide for your family. This type of insurances typically involve paying a relatively small premium that protects you financially from greater risk or loss. Insurance helps to insulate you from the financial impact of life events that can cause dire economic consequences. Paying for the appropriate insurance for your specific circumstances is a small price to pay for protection against a catastrophic loss from which it might be difficult or impossible to recover. Again, seek competent professional advice from a trusted source for more information on insurance in your community. Ultimately, budgets are flexible documents to use as a guide to successfully manage your money and resources. Remember, a budget will only work if you make a commitment to stick to it. By doing so, this will allow you to manage your money wisely and invest in your future. For more on this course and to access related resources, visit our website.
All right. Can you guys hear me now? Everybody hearing me? Yes, great.
Yes.
So we learned about budgeting for our future. I would love if Mr. Rawle could share some of his thoughts on budgeting for the future as it applies to the locals of Trinidad and Tobago. How could we apply what we just learned?
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, all. Thank you, Ms. Can. It's great being here as part of the EHub presentation this morning, and to all members of the EHub team. You know, I think this is really a great initiative. Am I coming across clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen. You can, stop me anytime. I'm just going to share a couple slides, and I'll just leave the floor open for any questions that you may have. You know, this is a very broad topic, as you would imagine. So I will really be guided by the questions that you ask. But just some initial thoughts having looked at this presentation. Allow me to just share my screen.
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay, great. Excellent. So I'm going to do so now. Tell me when you're seeing it. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So I thought I'll just insert a couple thoughts, that would kind of get you thinking about this area. So much was touched on there as it pertains to doing a budget. Of course, goal setting, that's a topic by itself, So I thought I'll just share a couple slides so related. So one of the first things I'll put up here is the types of goals that we set, right? I think, over the years that I've been in practice, I think it's important to understand the types of goals that are important. Now, typically, we focus our goals on the left-hand side of the screen, which are acquisition-focused goals. We're talking about consumerism largely, except, of course, when it's buying an asset. So purchasing an asset, as you would imagine, an asset is something that will continue to generate revenue or income for you. If you're purchasing something that doesn't do that, then we have to question whether or not it's really an asset. So let's say you purchase a car, for example. If that car is not bringing some benefit, financial benefit back to you, then it may not be easy to classify that as an asset, right? So we see the examples, which are typical: food, clothing, entertainment, travel, education, marriage, all these things on the left-hand side. But what I'd encourage you, those of you listening, is to include as well what I call wealth management focus goals. So for example, minimizing expenses, right? When it comes to budgeting, there are ways to improve that surplus for those of you that may realize a surplus, or even if you don't have a surplus in deficit, just minimizing expenses. And typically, Ms. Can, it's something I'll do as a session by itself. You'd be surprised if we take the time to sit down and we look at the various areas in our lives, all the various ways that we can cut costs. Simple things like making sure before you go to the grocery, you make a note of what you want, all right? Tracking the cost of things over time. So many things. There are things that you can do yourself. All right. You can save money on your gas bill by making sure your tires are well aired. If your tires are well aired, you would use less gas, So, I mean, we live in a Google age, and I know I don't have to itemize all the different things, but I certainly encourage groups like this. What will be a beautiful exercise is to actually set up a minimize expenses board, Ms. Can, where you can actually have persons share their own ideas. And I'm sure here within the group, there are many different ideas that persons can share that they have used to minimize expenses that have worked for you, right? The other goal I'd want you to make sure you have is maximizing return on investment. And I know we're going to talk about that a little later in the next slide. But just to set it here, you want to ensure that wherever you're getting a return, that it's being maximized. One of the ways of doing that is to know what it is. So you have to know what your numbers are. Some people have monies in the bank, they have money in a credit union, they have money in some sort of fund, but they don't know what's the return, and they hardly look at it. And most of the times when I ask the question, what kind of return are you getting? You know, I get a lot of radio silence, right? In addition to that, maximizing return on investment means understanding the costs related to that investment or even savings. So you may be in a bank account that's earning 1%, but then you have charges associated with that account. When you minus the charges from the expense, you get a real sense of whether or not you're getting any decent return or your money is decreasing in value, right? So these are just some ideas. I hope that, I'm open to any questions, of course, on it, right? You want to also have health goals. Your health is your wealth. Sometimes people eliminate this from their budget. You need to have something that encourages mental health, physical health. So many times I have clients coming to me where their health has deteriorated, and it impacts the ability to earn income as well as depletes the income that they've saved. So certainly it's one of the things you want to look at. Personal growth goals, emergency fund goals. Typically, it's suggested you need to treat 3 to 6 months of expenses as a goal. That's something that you put in your budget that you save towards. You need retirement goals. Maybe a little later I might be able to get into that. Business goals for those of you that are involved in business. My mantra really is that everyone should be involved in business in some way, whether you're directly involved doing the service, doing the product, or whether you are invested in a business. But that's something else we can talk about. Financial independence goals and, of course, legacy goals. And let me expand a little bit on this idea of financial independence as a goal, right? Research has shown that something like about 65% of the persons reaching that retirement age are not financially independent, right? They rely on the state, they rely on charity, they rely on handouts, or they rely on some other means of gaining income, right? So I think in your planning, as you look at your goals, as you look at your budget, setting financial independence is key. Of course, this is related to a topic called your net worth. Your net worth or your wealth is the difference between the assets, the value of the assets that you have, and the liabilities attached to those, whether it's a loan payment or any expenses that you have. Wealth will grow when the value of those assets appreciate or increase in relation to the liabilities that you have. So it's one of the numbers I ask people to track, right? So it gives you a sense of whether or not your financial decisions and your budget is working for you. So of course, we have 3 main variables that are essential to achieving financial investments: the amount that you save, the return that you're getting, and the time invested, right? So I like to ask the question, of those 3 variables, which one do you believe, in your estimation, is the most important? You can probably put it in the chat, or I don't know if you're allowed to open up the mic now, Ms. Khan, but you can respond just to get a sense in the room how you'll see this particular topic. I would need some help if people are
I'm
giving
gonna
answers.
say time. I see someone in the chat also said time.
Time, yes. Anybody else? Any other answers put forward? Amount saved, return on investment, time invested. Any other percents, Ms. Khan? Because I can't see the thing at this time.
Well, everybody in the chat is saying time.
Excellent.
Or someone says return, and someone says amount
right?
saved as well.
Well, it basically depends on stage of life, right? Certainly, if you're 65, 70, 80 years old, then you don't have time, right? Although there are ways to make that work, right? But time invested is the most important principle. And that's why young persons in their 20s, their 30s, it's an excellent time to put away or squirrel away even small amounts, all right? Because those things add up. In fact, maybe we might be able to touch on compound interest in the next presentation, but compound interest can help make the difference with even small amounts. So much so that you can save for a period of time, stop, and that compound interest can work for you towards your financial goals. So good. So let me move on. Right. The other thing when it comes to financial independence, I always think it valuable to get a graphic so people can see when I say financial independence, what we're talking about here. So you imagine that we have two lines here, the income line and the expense line, right? And the challenge with financial planning and goal setting is that you, as your income, if you look at what's happening here, as your income increases, your expenses are increasing at the same rate. This here is what you call financial dependency. All right. So you have to find a way, all right, as part of your financial goals and planning to have a situation like this. All right. There's a book I like to recommend called The Millionaire Next Door. For those of you that are research, you like to see things in black and white, where these two professors researched financial independence and wealth in the US, right? And demonstrated this principle here. Essentially, you have to arrive at a place in your life where your expenses peter off. You determine this is the lifestyle that I want, and you don't just increase this. Something called lifestyle inflation eats away. So that gap there between the income and the expenses, you see, well, that's where real wealth and financial independence is created. So you want to be careful and take a look at that, right? So I always like to use this slide. Some people respond that it's helpful. So essentially, if you're going to look at your situation, all of us, we want to improve our financial situation. What are the options? We save or invest wisely, decrease our spending, minimize debt, better paying job, you own your own business. Pretty straightforward formula. So quite a lot of strategies and techniques can come out depending on which of these you're able to execute. Right? Some other things you want to keep in mind, needs versus wants. And sometimes this could be challenging, all right? Because so many things in one past life that has been a luxury has become so much of a need, you know? Take for example, things like transport, having your own transport. For some persons, that's critical. That's not just a want, that's a need. And it's something that we have to take some time to work out. We have to look at the time that we have versus the goals that we want to achieve. Right? The time will then help us to navigate the kind of goals that we have. The interest rate that we're looking for versus the risk, right? And of course, effort versus passion. And I like to put this there because when we start thinking about goal setting and going after things, it's important to include elements of things that fire you up, because that gives the incentive for goal attainment and goal achievement. And anytime it's all just hard work, you can find it being difficult, although there are times when you just have to put the effort out, right? I thought it, Ms. Khan, also valuable to put up. I don't know if you've ever actually seen what a financial plan looks like. There are many versions out there. So this is one plan here. This is, of course, a sample. And an ideal place for this is Excel. So this works along with your budget. You set the goals, and then you look at your budget, and then you go back and forth. It's sort of an iterative process. So nothing that I've put on the screen here is cast in stone, but at least initially you put, what are your best dreams? Okay, I want a home in 5 years. So I will need to accumulate $300,000 to get that particular loan or mortgage. And I need, oh no, in this case, we're using the home. I kept it simple, right? Of course, there are no homes at 300,000. Right? But just for calculation's sake, right? So let's say you need $15,000 as a down payment for that home to get a mortgage. The savings required, if you divide that by the number of months over 5 years, you need to save $250 a month. And the same goes for all these goals. Now, what this does for you is automatically say to you, I need to save $5,600 for all the goals that are important to me in life. Then we go back to our budget. One or two things going to happen. You're going to be either over or under, right? Then you ask yourself, is this realistic? If you're doing this in Excel, you can then vary the years, change the cost, change the requirements, and you would see changes that can then fit your budget. Now, being entrepreneurs, I know quite a number of you are, the other thing that happens with this is that this becomes now a driving force for your business. You now know that this is the minimum that the business must do for you, apart from the business expenses, for it to make sense. So it now becomes a goal. So what I've been able to do is to use this as a nice goal planning sheet that then informs your budget, right? And we could actually break this goal down in terms of the number of products or services you need to sell to accomplish that particular goal, right? So Ms. Khan, I don't mind if you opening the floor just to make sure people understand the concept. And this normally would precede the budgeting process. Yeah. Any questions? Any comments? Does this make sense? Does it resonate? Just give me a thumbs up if you think you got it. Right. I've seen some thumbs up. Making sense? Okay, great.
Definitely
Any comments?
making sense.
Okay. Any questions on it? So remember, it's an iterative process. So you begin by looking at what's the best case scenario for you, and then you make adjustments. So it's an iterative process. And then you put your budget to work. So your budget now has some direction. Most persons' budgets are just, okay, I have a budget, and it just gets me living month to month. But you need to really get that direction. So it means that when you hit your budget every month, you get this sense that you're getting closer to the goals that are important to you. So not having that connection between that financial plan and your budget, to me, is one of the mistakes or errors that people make, right? Any
Mr.
questions?
Rawle, we have a question. Oh, the person
Sure.
put their hand down. If you could just raise back your hand or just jump in the chat and ask
Sure.
questions. Yeah.
Hi,
don't
good
know.
day.
Yeah.
Hi, good
Yes.
morning.
Good
I
morning.
really do appreciate this financial plan summary. I don't think I've ever seen it like this before. My question though is on a person who is like 50 and up.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
what advice would you give in terms of getting this plan together? I mean, time is very important
Yes.
where that is concerned,
Yes.
especially retirement coming around the corner.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
what advice would you give in that regard? And I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for sharing. So, of course, you have less time to work with, right? Maybe some of these goals you've already accomplished. So you may not have as many goals on your list, so you may have different goals, because a lot of this is based upon your stage of life, right? So some persons they're already married, the children are out, it's an empty nest. So they're really more concerned about paying off their mortgage and retirement and long-term health care, those kinds of issues, right? So all it really means is what this does for you is give you a real sense of where you are, right? Because when you put it down and we identify that these are the critical goals, then we look at what are the strategies? So let me give you an example with retirement. So let's say you only have 5 years to retirement, you have a short time to retirement. What are the things that you can do, right? That's where things like business opportunities, getting involved in some sideline, anything that can increase the income potential apart from the income that you're earning. There is also something called an immediate annuity, right? Generally, when you're saving for retirement, you save for some time, and then when the retirement comes, they pay you out an annuity, and typically for life, right? But let's say you weren't able to do all of that and you have short time to work with. What you can do is, if you get a lump sum from your employer or gratuity, or you have lump sum saved, you can dump that into an annuity, into a pension fund, and you start getting paid from the next month once you've reached that retirement age, for example, if you're close. So there are some options that you can use if you do not have time, right? It's called an immediate annuity. So that's in the case of the annuity, but generally it means looking at supplementing your income and sitting and chatting with someone as to how we can do so, right? I hope that answers your question. Yes, great. Anything else before I move on? Great. So I hope this is of some help. A great place to have it is Excel, and you could maybe adjust the value of the home that you're looking at. Of course, home today we're talking about 1 point something million. You're very good if you get something for $1 million, right? Right. Some people are buying land as well and deciding to build, all those options, right? So of course the figures will change for you. Great.
Mr.
So I
Rawle,
think
someone is asking, how did you come up with the required number on the
right. So typically Right, it will vary, right? So depending on the loan that you're getting, some, if you go to mortgage TTMF, you might be able to get 100% financing, sometimes 5%, sometimes 10%. So it means that you have to come up with the 5% or the 10%. I normally like to use a 10%. You know, that's normally where I like to pitch it. So you'd realize, in this case, I use 5%. So 10% of this would be 300,000. So this is 5% down payment. So you have to come up with this down payment. So all along the line here, you would see figures based upon what you have to come up as a down payment. So that's what that represents. In the case of marriage, there's no loan. So that's why it's 2020. You are saving towards it. In the case of education, that's a loan. So that 20,000 is the down payment. You see that? So the required figure represents what you have to save towards the goal on the left of it, right? In the case of emergency fund, it's all on you. So that's why it's $18,000 that you have to come up with. When we do that division, that's $750 a month over 2 years, right? Of course, the beauty with this as well that people don't see is that this $5,604 is not forever, right? Because as you begin to accomplish things, you get the home, you get the car, certain things, that figure decreases over time, right? So I just thought I'd mention that. Any questions before I proceed? I hope this is shedding some light and adding to the topic. Okay, great. So I'll proceed, Ms. Khan?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
Okay, great.
Oh,
All
wait,
right,
we have one
excellent.
question from Mr.
Sure.
Marlon.
Yes, Mr. Marlon.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. I know you
Good morning.
mentioned the great thing is over time, the figures will reduce and it will remain the same. But I'm going back with something that we said previously, and I mean, it's the experience in life. When the things change, the goals also change over time. So the value of the money may not decrease, it may just be channeled into something else, a new goal come about over time. So, I mean, I just think that person don't think immediately it means, the money will disappear. It may
Yes,
mean
thank you for that.
we may channel it into something else.
Yes.
Our goals.
And understand as well too, thanks for that, Marlon, that we have to add expense to this, right? So let's say this is your savings requirement and your expenses are $5,000 a month, then altogether you need $10,604 for life to make sense. So this begins to give you a sense of what kind of income should I push for? What kind of job can I push for? It gives you a sense of what should your business be earning for it to make sense for you. Because if your business cannot help you with the goals that you require, then that becomes there's a tension there, right? And you might tend to give up on it. So that's why seeing it clearly gives you the options, how are you going to push for this goal? Are you going to make adjustments? So I have had clients, we do this process and then they say, okay, listen, man, this thing is beyond me. And they begin to shift their goals. But it gives you a sense way before it happens, what your situation could be like. Yeah. So that's how it's helpful. So thanks for that, Marlon. So good. So we're moving forward if there are no more questions. So the other issue I wanted to address, Dave Ramsey is somebody that I would like you to do. Those of you who are who follow various financial gurus, when it comes to budgeting in particular, he has a podcast on as well. So he's somebody you can look up, but he is world renowned for his work on budgeting. So I thought I'd share this screen here. These are based upon research, some typical expense ranges for the various items on your budget. So this what you'd see here, food should typically be between 5 and 15%, utilities between 5 and 10%, transport. So you'd see the figure, savings between 10 and 15%, right? Of course, this varies person by person, situation by situation, right? But these are just some general guidelines that have worked for quite a number of persons when it comes to achieving financial independence. So this is what you do with it, right? So once you see the guidelines, you compare these guidelines to your current situation, right? So then the question you ask is, which one of my the budget items are within the recommended percentages, right? Which are outside, right? Which are fixed, which are flexible, right? Which may tend to decrease or increase over time, right? Which ones do I want to increase or decrease? So after you see, you compare with the percentages, you then determine what's best for you. All right. So it means making that assessment and then looking at it and saying, okay, for me, I feel my figure should be a little higher because these are the goals that are important to me. And as you would imagine, these things flex over time. You know, when you're a teenager, it's one thing. When you're single and working, it's one thing. When you have kids and married, it's another thing. You know, so every stage of life is different. So it's something that you don't set and forget, but you every month, ever so often, you have to have that periodic check-in, right? Because as Marlon identified earlier, nothing stays static. Things are always in a state of change and flux, right? So I hope that is helpful as well, right? The other challenge sometimes people have is in prioritizing, and I felt the perk formula may help some of you, right? And it's a way of helping you determine, okay, what should I really keep in my budget, right? So basically the perk formula says you list all the items in the budget and then you go over each item and you assign one of these letters, right? Now, I would advise, you know, that this is something you may want to do with have another eye, you know, because sometimes we have a little personal bias, right? So it may be valuable if you're married, something that families can do together, and bring the kids in. Bring the kids in. Let them see the process. Let them get the thinking, because, you know, consumerism is something that's really challenging. And I always do the experiment where you give a child $10 or $20 and see what the child does with it. 8 out of 10 children going to buy something, right? Some of them going to put it in a piggy bank, right? So bring the kids in on this discussion. This is a nice thing to have as a family discussion, that ever so often you look at it and say, okay, honey, let's put a P here. I think we should postpone this. I think we can eliminate this altogether. This is an area, you know, if we do these strategies, we can reduce and keep, right? And then, of course, you recalculate the budget based on this discussion. So I hope this is helpful. Any comments here? I don't know how many you've seen it before. If you feel it's helpful, let me get a thumbs up. Okay, good. Excellent. Great. So we're moving forward, right? One thing I wanted to highlight as a mindset is that cash brings cash. And as you see on the screen, what cash is, right? Knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. So I encourage you in presentations like these or any other presentations to identify the areas of knowledge that you need to improve, the attitudes that you may need to adjust, the skills, you know, that you need to develop, and the habits you need to inculcate. So I always like to put that there as a kind of guiding post for persons. And it becomes, you know, as you go through the rest of the presentation, you can actually make a note in each area. Yes, this is something I need to learn. I should Google this or try this on AI. Oh, this is an attitude that I really need to work on. This is a skill, you know, I really don't know about investing. I need to, you know, manage a skill. And then, of course, the habits that we have, right? So let me see if there's anything else at this time. I think that's it for now, Ms. Khan, right? And we will probably after the next presentation look at some other areas. So thanks for now.
Thank you for this amazing presentation. Cash and perk is two things that I did not know. So
okay,
you're
excellent.
never too old to learn. So thank you for that.
Sure.
We're going to move right into the next part of the presentation. So this focuses on investing, credit, and debt management.
Hello, my name is Theophilus Tego. I'm a financial student ambassador for the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development. Through the society, I work with college students on building their personal money management skills with an emphasis on budgeting, credit and debt management, and investment. Welcome to Fundamentals of Personal Money Management. This lesson is investing, credit, and debt management. In this lesson, we'll examine the principles of investing, the concept of compound interest, and the different types of personal investment tools that can help grow your income. Finally, we look at best practices for managing credit and debt. I'm presenting this concept to you in general terms. For information on specific personal money management, you should consult a qualified financial professional. Effective money management is an important skill because it helps you reach your financial goals. It involves focusing financial resources to meet your current and future financial needs, as well as your financial obligations. One aspect of money management that will play a key role in meeting your needs at each stage of your life is investing. Investing involves committing some of your money into assets with the hope that it increases in value. As a result, you create wealth and income for your future. When you are putting money into a financial vehicle, you are seeking the benefit of the potential growth of your investments. Consider ways to start investing a small amount of money early, so that through the power of compounding interest, the value of your investments increase over time. Two of the most important concepts about investing are simple interest versus compound interest, and how each factor into how your money grows. Simple interest is calculated and paid on just the principal or the money you deposited into the account. In contrast, compound interest is calculated and paid on both the principal amount plus all the previously accumulated interest earned. Think of it as building blocks. Simple interest is like adding onto the first brick laid every time. Compound interest is more like adding new brick to the last one you place at the very top. The wall gets taller, your money grows more substantially with compound interest. Money that is compounding is money at work. When you open a savings account at a financial institution, ask your representative if simple interest or compound interest will be paid on your account. Often, money put away for savings at home loses the benefit of compounding. But money put aside into a savings account earning interest that compounds frequently can make a huge difference as it increases its value over time. Let's look at an example. If $5,000 were deposited for 10 years, earning 6% simple interest annually, the account value in 10 years would total $8,000. But if the same amount of money were to earn compound interest, at the end of 10 years, the value would be $8,954, almost $1,000 more. In fact, the amount will reach $9,070 if instead of annual compounding, the interest crediting method allows for quarterly compounding. What does this mean? It means that instead of interest being credited once a year, interest will be credited on the accumulated balance every quarter, making the amount earned every 3 months slightly higher. The frequency of compounding daily, monthly, quarterly, or annually can make a big difference. In this example, the accumulated value in 2 more years will reach $10,000. This is more than double the original amount. Any subsequent growth continues to benefit from earning on top of the old earnings, so that as the accounts get larger, it grows exponentially. When it comes to compounding, the rule of 72 is a simple way to estimate how long it will take an investment to double given the fixed annual rates of interest. By dividing 72 by the annual rate of return, you can get a rough estimate of how many years it will take for a one-time initial investment to double. In this case, we will divide 72 by 6, our interest rates, to find that it will take the original $5,000 investment 12 years to double. This example assumes that not only the initial amount deposited, but the amount accumulated will grow much larger if you continue to add more into the account. Depending on the length of time someone invests and the rate of return earned on the money, it becomes apparent that the accumulated earnings can exceed the principal. By taking advantage of the power of compounding, you can put in much smaller amounts in early years and let the work of compounding do the work of increasing the value of your account. Delaying or starting later in life simply may not give you enough time to take advantage of accumulated growth over time. Even doubling or tripling the amount contributed on a monthly basis may not allow enough time to catch up to the account value of someone who started early with much less and allowed the earnings to keep growing. Now let's look at other types of investments which can also increase in value and create wealth and income for you. These are stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Stocks are securities that represent ownership in a company. If the shares of stock increases, the value of your ownership in the company increases. Bonds represent loans in which a company or government entity is essentially borrowing money and issuing you an IOU, promising to pay interest and to return the amount that was borrowed at a future date. Mutual funds represent a combination of the two by purchasing shares in a grouping of stocks or bonds managed by an investment company. Despite the volatility historically, the average return over a given period of time on investment assets outperform what can be earned in safer interest-bearing accounts. Unlike a savings account that offers savers a set interest rate, money invested in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds does not have defined interest rate when you invest. Instead, these seek a rate of return on the investment. There's no guarantee of what you earn on your investment. There is both the potential for gain or loss, and there's no guarantee that money will grow. This is what we refer to as risks when discussing investments. Investing involves a risk-reward relationship. Generally, the lower your risk, which is found in savings accounts and certificates of deposits, the lower the return. Conversely, high-risk investment like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds offer a greater potential return on your investment. Investment vehicles such as stocks, bonds, and mutual funds tend to fluctuate in value based on various market-related and economic factors. While in most cases, historical return in this type of investment represents high overall gains, it should be expected that market or economic conditions may also result in negative rates of return or a lesser return than expected. Smart investing requires that you choose investments according to your time horizon and risk tolerance. Your time horizon relates to your life stage or the time you think you will need the money. Risk tolerance relates to your ability to withstand changes in the value of your investment that may occur from time to time. For example, if you are investing for retirement that will not come until 25 or more years in the future, you can afford to invest in a more risk-tolerant way, taking a chance on high risk, potentially high-return financial vehicle or two. Even in years of negative return, the account has time to recover and make up losses before funds are ever needed. If, on the other hand, you know you need the money being invested in 3 to 5 years, it makes sense to limit your risk exposure by making low risk, low volatility investment. While smart investment is but one aspect of your focus on the road to creating wealth, the issue of credit and debt management are vitally important to your financial well-being and economic stability. The mismanagement of credit and debt can drain your financial resources and limit your ability to make investments. Credit and debt management are those areas in which what you don't know can hurt you really applies. Credit is a powerful tool for wealth building. It gives you the ability to acquire goods and services today but pay later. Credit can be used to pay for your education, purchase a vehicle, help fund the startup of a business, or buy a home. When you are granted credit or use a credit card, you are essentially borrowing money and making a promise to repay it back, usually with interest. When you use credit to pay for expenses, you are committing or giving up the future use of your money. When applying for credit, potential lenders will look for these top 3 factors. They are called the 3 C's: capacity, character, and collateral. Capacity look at your ability to pay the debt that you are seeking. That is, do you have the income and resources sufficient to pay back the loan and maintain the payments? Character is a consideration of your creditworthiness. This refers to your reputation for paying bills when due by considering your past payment history with other lenders as an indication of your willingness and ability to honor agreements. Collateral is an asset pledged to the creditor until the debt obligation is paid. Example, if you own your home, it may be used as collateral to secure a loan. Management of credit is extremely important when it comes to your financial health because negative information on your credit reports follows you for years, well after an incident or late payment has occurred. Even if you are able to obtain credit, the cost of credit is increased in the form of higher interest rates. Another issue most people may not be aware of until it's too late is how credit is used by others in making decisions unrelated to borrowing. Employers, landlords, banks, service providers, and insurance companies use your credit history as an objective assessment in determining whether to accept or deny applicants, deny services, or charge higher fees. This can make a difference in what job you get, where you are able to live, or your access to choices in obtaining basic services. Prioritizing debt reduction now by adjusting your budget to pay more than your minimum payment can help you get on a better path to have more money to invest later. Money management is not simply about how you spend money. It's about considering and making disciplined choices. Despite having limited current resources, carefully considered financial choices that you make now have an influence on how you are able to build a foundation for your future financial well-being. Thank you for the opportunity to share how investing, credit, and debt management are tools for long-term financial success. For more information on this course and to access related resources, visit our website.
All right, Mr. Rawle, a lot of information here.
Yes, quite a lot.
We touched on the rule of 72. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, lots of ideas there. Of course, remember the formula: knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. So some of you may already be taking that knowledge area. You need to get some more information on some of these areas. And, you know, as I said before, everything is, what's the word, Miss Can? Googleable, if that's a word. I mean, we live in a Google age, right? So I'm not trying to repeat to cover anything that you can simply Google. But I mean, there was so much there. Just some thoughts. The rule of 72, it's a really nice gauge. And one of the things it encourages to do is to understand the importance of the little numbers. Sometimes we ignore the percentages, you know. So you might be getting 1.25%, and it's just 2.5% more, or it's just 1% more. In fact, when I ask the question, how many of you know what interest you're getting on your bank account or any other savings? 80% of the people don't know, right? And even if they know at one time, they don't continue to track it. Even if they track it, they don't know the costs of it. They've never sat down to determine, if I'm getting 1%, all these charges and all these things that happen every month, what is that percentage versus what I'm earning? You understand? So the numbers are important. So I'll give an illustration this way, right? If you take 72, right, and you divide it by 1%, so you're earning 1%, it means if you have $2,000 in the bank, it will take 72 years, right, to double that $2,000. You're with me so far? What happens if you earn 2%? Put that in it. Like, what will happen if you earn just 1% more? What happens to that time frame? Anybody? You can put it in the chat. You can open the mic. What happens if you get 1% more, meaning that you now get 2%, using that rule of 72? How long will it take to double your money? I want the actual time based upon the formula that was shared in the video. Anybody? It's not a trick question. It's straight maths. Anybody care to vent here? So it's 72 divided by the rate of interest, tells you how long your money will take to double. So 72 divided by 2 is what? 36 years. Exactly, Michelle. So think about it this way. 1% more cuts the time in half. So think about everywhere that you're earning money. Are you paying attention to that? So I just thought I'd highlight the importance of the numbers, right? So let's jump in now. When it comes to investing and getting the best for your money, right? An important principle to keep in mind is that you are working hard for your money, so your money must be working hard for you, right? You are working hard wherever. In fact, if you do investing well, your money will work even harder than you are, and even work when you can't work. And that's really the goal of investment, right? At the end of the day, it can help almost replace that income at the time when it's needed, but also have additional income for the things that you desire, right? So it's either you at work, your money at work, or charity. No, you at work has its limitations and its challenges, and that's where investment comes in. So let's look at the two aspects of your money at work, right? So there are two basic ways in which your money will work for you. It's either you get what is called portfolio income, or you get what is called passive income. So you have portfolio income or passive income. Portfolio income is essentially anything that you buy and sell. So buying and selling anything, that difference that you earn, all right, is what you call portfolio income. So for example, you buy shares at $10, right? And you sell it at $15. It meant you make $5 extra on every share, or 50%. Make sense? Right? Or any, and this applies to any asset, right? Even it's a vehicle, if it's a real estate, and some people, there are a number of persons doing that now. They're buying startup homes, doing a little fix up, selling it over, all right? Or holding it and then selling it at a later time. So that's one way of having your money work for you, right? Now, in the Trinidad context, the stock exchange, for example, you're not going to get so much portfolio income advantage here. Our market is more on the dividend income side. In other words, when you buy a share, companies will declare dividends from time to time. Some companies will pay it annually. You know, they just do it regularly. Some do it based upon how the company earns, right? Dividends are paid out. If you add the price increase and the dividends that you earn, right, on a share in Trinidad and Tobago, I think that's where the magic is. And let me ask a question, right? How many of you think, what's the percentage of persons you believe have a stock brokerage account? Anybody here has a stock brokerage account? Any, all right, I see thumbs up. Right, good. This is excellent. This is excellent. And we need to have more persons. I was looking at some stats recently, and it's just about 5% of the persons who are able to actually have a stock brokerage account. I want you to sit down and think about that figure for a while, right? The stock market, and I encourage you to do your own research. Sometimes it's given over time, and this is not immediate year to year, but if you track it over 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you're going to see returns that even do better than some other instruments on the market, even in Trinidad and Tobago, all right? It's not always fantastic, but sometimes you get 7, 8, 9, 10% return, right? Now, consider that only 5% of persons, right? I would push the conversation a little bit to ask you who you think are those 5%, but we're not going to go there. But I'm just going to encourage you to look at it as an option when it comes to investing in Trinidad and Tobago. You want to explore the stock market and get familiar with the terminology, how it's done, right? So in addition to dividends, which is another form of passive income, you have rental income. A lot of people are doing that. I had a client who, in the first 10 years of his life, right, devoted all his income to setting up little properties here and there, everything that he had, all right? He was able to retire somewhere in his 40s because he was relying on rental income. He's actually a UE professor now, doing what he loves to do in economics, but he took some time to really set his life on a course. I mean, it was hard to see him because he really put everything into getting some property, getting some rental income coming in, and now he is set. Now, so rental income, of course, business income. There's some of you that may be able to invest in a business, right? Not necessarily be in it. It may be a food cart. It may be something that you can invest in, somebody doing hair. I mean, the whole beauty products and beauty business is a whole discussion by itself, right? But, you know, there are other options. Of course, if you are a songwriter or a musician, you know, even selling your music, the royalties. Some people have even tried things like affiliate or multi-level marketing, which there are multi-level marketing programs that are legitimate, that are good, right? So I know people, most of them see them as a Ponzi scheme. And generally that is so if the underlying instrument isn't being sold or moved, and the plan is only reliant on persons coming in to earn its money, because, you know, when you pay in, you know, you have a subscription to come in. So if whatever you get involved in, that's the only way or the main way, and the actual product or service isn't moving as well, you know, in other words, if you can't live off the product and service in the multi-level without bringing people in, then you have to question it. But there are some that are doing reasonably well, right? The other thing you'd want to think about when it comes to your investment is understand your investment goals. Always ask the question, is this registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission? Trinidad and Tobago in particular, when you see the stats, is prone to fraud, because we are adventurous, right? We like to try all kinds of things, right? So you want to make sure that it's registered and even approach the SEC. In fact, there are penalties, and these penalties run in the amounts of tens of thousands of dollars if you involve in any scheme, if you promote any scheme, right? So if you sell it, if you promote it, if you're involved in it, if you have anything to do with it, there are serious penalties, and there's also jail time. So you may not be the person who developed it or started it, but you bear some of that risk, right? While we're on that, risk is another thing that you need to understand, right? And I'll say off the bat, there's no such thing as no risk. There's always some type of risk. So that's an area you may want to explore to understand the different types of risk associated with anything that you get into. Any investment should typically have a prospectus which outlines what the investment is about. And you want to ask for that. It may be something as elaborate as 10, 12 pages. It might be 3 pages, but yes, there needs to be some documentation that explains how is the interest accumulated? How is it applied? Is it daily? Is it monthly? What are there any exit fees if I exit before time? Are there any penalties? All right. Is it covered by deposit insurance? Do I have insurance coverage for it? Right? Any other additional benefits you want to ask yourself these questions, right? Can I access it from time to time? Right? All these are questions you'd want to ask as well, right? So in terms of some overall questions to ask about your investment strategy, I mentioned knowing what the objective is, understanding your time horizon, understanding and calculating the actual return that is expected. All right. I think I'll stop at those, right? For now. All right. Okay, as far as debt management, I'd want to just mention a couple things here, right? Of course, it makes sense that you know your debt and you track your debt if you're getting involved in any kind of loan, right? Which is valuable, you know, but you want to make sure that your debt service ratio, which is what you have to pay in your loan versus the income that you have, that percentage, you want to make sure that it's in the 30%, 40% range, you know. This is typically what various institutions look for, right? You want to make sure you pay on time. You want to make sure you pay a little bit more than the minimum sometimes. All these things help decrease the principal so that you can pay faster. If you can pay twice a month, all right? All those are the things that you can do. There's also something called the avalanche method, where you pay off your most expensive loan first, and that gives you a motivation, right? There's the opposite of that is called the snowball method, right? Where you pay the smallest loan first. These are all different strategies, right? But anything that you can do to cut down on that principal faster so you can decrease the time spent in the loan, right? Let me see anything else I'd want to mention. I think that's it for now. I'll just open the floor for any questions, Ms. Khan, that persons may have on this particular topic.
There isn't anything in the chat, but if you guys want to unmute and ask your questions, feel free to do so.
Hi, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
I have heard a lot, well, I've read a lot about, well, seen on social media, a lot about trust funds.
Yes.
Would those things apply to middle class, you know, citizens, even medium-sized businesses, etc.? I just wanted to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's more of a legal question, but I do have clients who have pursued it, all right? And the whole idea is you can leave funds in a way for those that going to come behind you, and you can do a little bit more than what a will do, right? And so you can have this fund that remains in your estate that you can then use in a very specific way. It means that you'll have managers managing that trust for you, all right? Say you move on, all right, you pass on, all right? And that can have very specifics about if, let's say, you have ailing parents, or you have a child who is handicapped or needs support, you know, or maybe you want that money invested in a particular way, maybe to invest in a particular fund or whatever, you know, the trust fund comes in. So I do know that generally, because of the expense and all that's involved, mainly persons who are on the higher income level do it, but you have more and more people who are paying attention, and the legal fraternity is kind of making some adjustments to support, as well as trust fund managers. So I would not rule it out. I would say still pursue it, right, as something that maybe, if you feel it's valuable to what you've earned. No, the concern really here is that persons have amassed their wealth, and they want to make sure that that wealth, most of that wealth, is retained into the future when they pass on. And that's really the idea here, right? Because too often you have situations where, maybe you've seen it, folks, where you see a lot of land just derelict for years because the persons who inherited the land didn't have the means to pay these taxes, to cut the grass, to fix the fence. I have clients who have land in Tokyo and they can't do anything about it because they just don't have the money. Having a trust fund in place can help deal with those things, right? I don't know if that answers your question, Ms.
It does. Thank you.
Right? Yeah. I see a question.
Yeah, we
What
have 3
brokerage
questions.
institution? Yeah.
We could start with the one that says, should I pay off a loan before I invest in the stock market?
Well, that's a kind of tricky question. I would probably need to know a little bit more about the loan and what other source of income you have. What is the loan for? How long, you know? But I guess typically, right, you want to, you know, I think it's a little difficult because it kind of depends to where you invest in, what is the loan amount, because sometimes the investment can even help with the loan, right? So I'd need to probably get some more information there, Nikita, to answer. That's a kind of tough one to answer. Sorry about that. I see one here. Is it wise to invest in international stocks, and do you have to or required to pay taxes, right? Well, I would say yes, and you have quite a number of persons who are doing it, all right? Any income that you earn, right, that you have to declare and pay taxes, all right? So, but of course, these things you do too, I would advise a stockbroker, right? Certainly locally, you know, you'll have to go through. There are probably about 10 or so authorized stockbrokers. If you go on the Securities and Exchange Commissions, I wouldn't recommend a particular stockbroker. You know, that's not something I can do, all right? But certainly I would, international stocks are something that I would encourage. In fact, for those of you that have interest in Africa, there's quite a lot happening in Africa now, and a lot of stockbrokers are beginning to look at that. There's a big IPO, which is an initial public offering coming out of Nigeria, a refinery there that they're building, and that promises to have some great returns. So you find that a lot of these emerging markets are accelerating at a rate that much faster to the established markets like the Europe and America, the Japan, and so forth. Even Guyana, yeah, the rate at which it's growing it far outpaces developed countries. So it's something you want to look at, right?
Ronald has his hand up. Ronald, if you want to unmute.
Yes.
Yes. You mentioned about paying off loans even earlier. But what I found now is that these lending institutes, when they fix the loan,
yes,
whether
yes,
you pay it off early or not,
yes,
the
yes,
interest remains the same.
yeah.
And so there's no longer that kind of a
well, it does exist, eh? It does exist, but these are questions you ask before you finalize your loan, right?
Okay.
And what some of them do, Ronald, is that they have penalties. So even if you pay off, you have a penalty, this additional lump sum. So there are all kind of ways, but yes, it still does exist, and it's a discussion. I encourage persons to have these discussions with the financial advisor, before you get into it, to read the fine print of how your loan actually works. But it still is possible in some institutions. Yeah. Thanks for that. I see a question here on.
Okay, Carrot is saying, are there any free apps that could help with budgeting and keeping track?
Oh, yes, none that I can name right now, but
I think there's one called Money Manager.
Yeah, there are a lot of apps. My bias, my bias is Excel.
Well, yeah,
right?
That's easier.
My bias is Excel because of how you're able to see it and manipulate it in front of you.
Do you have a template? Do you have a template?
Yes, I have a template. I have a budget template. I can share it with Ms. Khan and she can get it to you. Yeah. So yeah, certainly. So I think so I have it where you have the actual versus the variance, and it's important to do because sometimes I would ask a person, so how much you spending on doubles? And before they know it, it's hundreds of dollars on doubles every month, and they didn't realize. All right. So I always encourage persons when they come to me for the first time, we actually do a tracking for 3 months to get a real sense of what's happening, because people tell me one thing, and when we track it, they say, but wait now, I didn't realize I was spending so much at Pennywise. This Pennywise bill just expanding, right? So it's good to track it. I would always, so there are apps, but I would always recommend Excel, as a very simple, effective way of managing your budget, right? Right.
Okay, Marlon has his hand up. Marlon, we're going to take your question and then we're going to move on to the last video, right?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, so Marlon, you could go ahead.
Yes, hi. So in essential to assist Ronald, and based on our conversation, I know you're talking about strategy. So if we want to look at the loan interest, as I mentioned earlier, I had a mortgage that I had to pay, and the institution increased it by 0.5%, and that sent up my monthly budget. So like 400 on that loan. And they as well would have either that if you try to pay more, there are penalties. But I realized that, we could shop around as part of a strategy, because there are other institutions like credit unions, to say, let's say, for example, compared to a particular bank, they don't charge any extra, no penalties for paying additional amount. So part of our strategies, when we get into these things, we could try shopping around instead of just, being fixed to probably what that could.
Yes. What I would advise, though, Marlon, is in your shopping around, you have to try to get information before this is actually logged as a request, because typically what happens when you begin that process, it goes through TransUnion. Sometimes when you have too many requests coming to TransUnion on a particular person for one type of loan, it registers as a negative thing, and it affects your credit score, your credit rating. So you want to be careful. You want to try to get the information without going all the way to application, because it will then trigger a request at TransUnion, because they have to go to TransUnion to see your credit history. So that's the only thing I'd be advised. If you're going to shop around, try to get the information without, going too deep into the process with each institution. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. That's without going to the process, to check and gain the information from the relative Quite right.
Yes, yes. So you certainly want to know, is it a flexible interest rate, variable or fixed interest rate? You want to find out those questions before, right?
Okay, we have two
Great.
more questions in the chat and then we're going to move on, right? So
Sure.
Kwesi is saying how to decide on term insurance, regular pension versus endowment plans. What is the ideal percentage contributions of income to make to these plans?
Right.
And Lorraine wants to know, can you comment on compound interest and unit trust? And can you advise on institutions that promote compound interest?
Yes, sure. Term insurance versus say, like whole of life or universal life insurance. The answer to any of your questions, they really have to do with your goals, right? The goals are most critical as well as your budget, right? So because term of life is limited, right? There are no other add-ons typically. It's maybe the cheapest form of insurance. So where your budget is tight, you don't have a lot of money, all right? That may be a place to go to, right? A lot of wealthy people do term insurance because they prefer than giving all that money to an institution. They could invest the money, right? But some institutions, right? And there was a point in time where universal life, whole of life, these products, the interest that you got and the savings element, because these other plans have a savings part of it, were actually better than the market, right? So it's a way of kind of forcing you to save. So I have a lot of clients who would have done that, and over time they would tell me, "Wow, I didn't realize I put aside so much money." It's like saving in the credit union. With the credit union, you take out a loan, some of that may go back to shares. You didn't realize that while you were paying off your loan, you were accumulating savings. So all those are elements, but it really comes down to your goals, right? What are your kind of levels of risk? What are your exposures? How long? What's your age? What's your medical history? Right? For some people, it might be easier to do term because the medical requirements might be lower, right, than having a universal life or other types. So all those are the kind of questions that come in, right? As far as pensions are concerned, I would encourage everyone to have a pension, right? Because of how pensions work, the payout, right? And from an investment standpoint, a pension, or some call it annuity, it's different but interchangeable, right? The way they pay out is based upon what you call 5-year or 10-year periods, and some have other periods. So I'll give you an example, right? It's a tremendous investment instrument. So let's say you were able to accumulate $1 million up to your retirement age, right? That means the annuity part of it will now kick in so that they're going to pay out to you an annuity every month, right? So let's say you get it's at a 10-year period in it, right? It will pay you, if it's $1 million, $100,000 a year. Is my maths okay? 100,000 by 10 years? That's $1 million, right? My math's good? The question now is, what happens if you live another 10 years? Does it stop? Does it continue? And with pension plans, it continues. If you live 30 years, you would have gotten $3 million. That's on top of the $1 million that you saved. There's no instrument that works like that. There's no instrument. So that's one of the things you need to consider. Now, if it's a registered annuity, the other advantage you have is that this money goes in before taxes come out. This may be a little challenging concept to catch, but every dollar that you save in a registered annuity is $1, because everything else after tax is 75 cents or whatever on the dollar that you're actually getting to invest. That making sense? So as a result, it tends to accumulate a little faster. So that's another thing to look at with pension funds. The other thing to consider as well is that the kinds of a risk that you take with general investments. A pension fund is backed by what you call the statutory reserve fund. So the monies that are invested in a pension fund are backed by the government. That's one of the reasons why we had that situation with CLICO. The government had to come in to protect investors. You with me? So there's no instrument. I mean, the most that you would get is for deposit insurance cover is $200,000 of any investment you have anywhere. I don't know if it can increase to $250,000 yet, but somewhere around $200,000, right? Whereas all of your money invested in a registered pension plan, right, is guaranteed or backed by the government. Let me use the word backed rather than guaranteed, right? So it means that the level of risk isn't as great as other instruments. So I will always recommend a pension plan as the base. It's not the only thing you do for retirement, because you can have a rent a house, you can have a business, there are other things you can do. But a pension plan I will always put as a priority. Yeah. So I hope I answered that question. There was one more.
Yeah, Renee says, when making a decision to purchase shares on TOP, what are the most important things to look out for on a company's prospectus?
When making, you said shares on where? Sorry, I didn't get part of what you said. Oh, TOP.
Yeah.
Well,
When making a
TOP.
decision to purchase shares on TOP, what to look out for in a company's prospectus?
What is TOP? Forgive me.
Renee, if you want to unmute and
Renee.
explain the
Yeah, what you're
question.
referring to as TOP, yeah.
And Lorraine is saying that a question on unit trust, if you could touch back on that, the compound interest question. Yeah.
You have your account at TOP?
That is where I have my account.
Oh, you mean the platform? All right, I got you. Yes. So the question is, when making this, what are the most important things to look for or on a company's prospectus? Well, at the end of the day, you want to look at performance, right? So there are some financial things, there are quantitative things, there are qualitative things you want to look at. You want to look at the performance, of course, over time. What is the profitability like? All right. You want to look at that over time. Have they been, what has been happening with the shares? You want to follow things that they're doing, the projects that they're into. Are they in growth mode? Are they kind of just stabilizing? So you get a sense of the kind of projects and stuff that they're into. You want to understand their management team and the persons, because at the end of the day, you have persons there making decisions. You want to investigate a little bit, who is the CEO? Who are the key persons in that company, right? Those are some of the other things that you'd want to pay attention to, right? I think those might be the key things I want to mention now from the prospectus perspective, you know? I hope that answers your question, Renee. And there's a question on unit trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is...
Can you comment on compound interest and unit trust? Can you advise on institutions that promote compound interest?
Well, when you say advise, typical investment. So let's see if we can get an example. Let's say even a fixed deposit, all right? If you hold that fixed deposit over a period of time, it will compound if you leave the interest in, right? Once you take out the interest, well, then that whole concept goes away, all right? Certainly with the unit trust, that only works when you leave whatever returns inside the fund. Once you take out your return or remove your returns, then that is squandered. Now, of course, there's something called dollar cost averaging, which is tied into a question that works particularly with mutual funds, which means that if you stay invested over a period, you have a particular minimum investment that you make regularly. Over time, because of the fluctuation of pricing, you're going to pay on average a cheaper price per unit. All right? So that's something to pay in mind as well. And that also helps in terms of the compounding, you know? But certainly once you leave the interest in, right? And you leave that to roll over, you're going to get compound interest at any institution, right?
All right, so we have a question from Maya in the chat, and I'm going to use this as a segue to the next section, because the next section touches exactly on this, making smart money choices. And I think a lot of us could benefit from that information. So I'm going to share my screen again. I can't see the chat while the screen is sharing, so if you guys have questions or anything, Mr. Rawle, you can just check the chat as we go, and we'll answer all the questions after.
Hello, my name is Mike Poulin. I'm a certified financial trainer with the Financial Gym, a personal financial services company that works with clients to help them set financial goals and create a plan for accomplishing them. Educating individuals on personal finance has always been a passion of mine because of the positive impact that it can have on everyone's lives. I have always wanted to spread financial literacy with the mindset that everyone can achieve their goals in life with the right amount of financial knowledge. This all starts with changing one's perspective of money management through simplified explanation and open reflection of past financial influences. I am interested in helping others understand that finances can be fun and not stressful. Welcome to Fundamentals of Personal Money Management. This lesson is Making Smart Money Choices. In this lesson, we will learn how to put our new money management knowledge and skills into action by uncovering the factors that influence our financial decisions, setting realistic goals, and devising strategies to change our behavior. Before we can start making smart money choices, we need to understand the factors that influence how we think about money. Much of what we learn about managing our finances comes from our family and our community. What did your family teach you about money? Were your parents diligent savers who never splurged? Did they spend everything they had and take on debt? How did this affect you and the way that you view money? Similarly, our friends' financial habits affect our own financial behaviors. If your friends like to spend time together shopping or eating out, you're more likely to spend your time and money on those activities as well. Even national norms can influence us. If it seems normal to take on large amounts of student debt in your country, you might not think twice about whether taking on debt is the best decision for you. To uncover the hidden influences in your life, make a list of what you've learned about money from your family, friends, and wider community. Which of those lessons will lead to positive financial decisions? Which of those could negatively affect your finances? Setting financial goals can help us overcome negative influences and start making smart money decisions. If you don't know where to start, ask yourself, what's important to you? What do you want your life to look like in 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years? Make a list. Once you have ideas about what you'd like to achieve financially, you should turn each goal into a SMART goal. This means that your goal should be specific. It should be clearly defined. Measurable. You should have a way to evaluate your progress. Achievable. Do the math to calculate when you can realistically expect to achieve your goal. Relevant. Your goals should align with your values and what you want out of life. Time-bound. You should be able to identify a target date for when you will achieve your goal. For example, earn more money is not a SMART goal. Submit 1 job application per week to secure a position as a project manager for a nonprofit making $60,000 by the end of the year is a SMART goal. Following these guidelines will put you in the best position to start taking action towards your goals, but you will likely need to change your financial habits and behaviors to achieve those goals. There are several strategies that we can use to modify behavior. Consider which of these strategies work best for the behaviors that you're trying to change. Monitoring. Keep track of behaviors that you do or don't want to do. Perhaps you've decided not to buy any new clothes for 1 month. To keep track of your progress and stay accountable, use a calendar to mark each day that you don't buy clothes. Start small. Behavior change takes time, and it's okay to start small. If you buy lunch every day during the week, but you want to cut back to save money, commit to making lunch at home 1 day per week. Once you get used to doing that, you can just add on another day. Automate. Set up systems that make the behavior you want to do easy, or ideally, automatic. If you want to ensure that you pay your credit card on time each month, set up autopay so you don't even have to think about it. Pairing. Link a behavior that you already do to a behavior that you would like to do. If you want to start tracking your daily expenses, commit to doing it after something you do every day, like brushing your teeth. Rewards. Give yourself a financially healthy reward when you achieve a big goal. For example, after you reach a big savings goal, you could go out to dinner with a friend to celebrate. Keep your reward proportional to the goal you achieve. Community. As we already established, the people around us influence our behavior. You can use this to your advantage by surrounding yourself with other people who are already doing the things that you want to do or working towards similar goals. Remember that you are seeking progress, not perfection. Changing your behavior is not always easy, but ultimately it will lead you closer to your financial goals and the kind of life that you want to live. For more information on this course and to access related resources, visit our website.
we heard a lot about community influencing the way we spend. We heard a lot about learning to build new habits. We heard about SMART goals. Mr. Rawle, feel free to share your insights on this, especially the SMART goals. I'm really interested in learning more about that.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Khan. You're hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, very important. I think, we have to understand financial planning as a process, right? Very often we don't start at the beginning, we start somewhere in the middle, and that's all right, I think once we continue to work at it, we'll begin to determine a kind of process, right? And that process really starts by understanding that there's something called a financial plan, right? And one of the things to note about it is that it has to be written, right? I say that because I've noticed over the years, when you take an idea, that's in your mind and you begin to put it on paper. Let's, for example, that financial plan template I shared with you, right? Earlier. Some persons are only thinking about one or two of those things at any point in time, and they're not seeing all the relationship. So what that can even tell you is where debt is going to come into your life. If you look at that plan carefully, you've seen some potential areas of where, okay, this is looking like a loan because I might not be able to save to this. So you actually get a sense of where loans are typically going to come in even before. So this whole idea of beginning to write things down and see how they're connected, there's a sort of magic, you understand, that takes place when you move things. So I'd first say that a financial plan is something written, costed, has a time frame, and of course the goals that were mentioned, very, very important, right? So I think most people have like a dream, have a wish list, but not necessarily a plan. Because as you course it goes, then you have to think about what are the various instruments. So it means you have to do a little research connected to all these goals. You can literally put this thing before you and then start looking at strategy, whether I'm going to do this through my business or what kind of income should I earn to get the kind of things that I want in life, you understand? So that's the first comment I would make there, right? Another way, of course, of looking at SMART, I like to break it down like this, right? So S is for setting goals. M is for looking for ways to multiply your income. A, aligning your spending. This is where your budgeting comes in. R, reinvesting wisely the money that you earn. And T, tracking. You'll be familiar with this term called evidence-based. Everything now is evidence-based marketing, evidence-based, but everything is evidence-based. You have to look at what the results of your financial behavior are telling you and make the requisite adjustments, right? Is your net worth increasing over time? So you go back to your goals to see, listen, no, my net worth, no, there's a time in your life where you're going to be spending more, of course, early because you're getting assets, you have to buy stuff that you need. But over time, your net worth is supposed to increase. So you have to start seeing an increase in the net worth that gives you a sense of how wise your decisions have been. So tracking becomes very important in this regard, right? So that's as much I'd want to add to what was shared before, and I'm open to any questions that persons will have on this whole topic.
Could you repeat what A was when you broke it down?
Aligning your spending, right? This is where the budgeting comes in, yeah? So align your spending. So set goals, set clear goals, and we got the example of what clear goals are, right? Specific, measurable, time-bound, you have to go through that process for it to be a clear goal. So it becomes achievable, right? We look for ways to multiply your income. And I take it most of us here on this stream are persons who are business-oriented. You probably already have your own business. To me, you're on the right track, right? But you have to arrive at a place where that business is making money, right, for you, right? So you have to develop ways of scaling what you're doing, all right, so that you have other persons who can come in and you can then move on to other things. So that money is happening for you, right? So multiply your income, align your spending, reinvesting that money that you earn wisely, and tracking your growth, yeah? So I'm open to any questions. I'm hoping Lorraine asked that question about the compound interest. I hope I was able to answer it for her if I get what she was saying. And then any other questions that you have?
Yeah, Lorraine says that her question was answered.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Lorraine. So any questions here? I think this actually, which is last, is a big piece, Ms. Khan. If you were to ask me in terms of errors and mistakes that people make, they jump into strategy without having a plan. People like to discuss strategy. Hey, where's a good place to invest? Invest here. I hear this thing making a lot of money. Let me put my money there. But when I ask them why, you know, what their time frames are, all the other things that's happening in their life, you know, you have a disconnect between strategy and goals and the things that are important to you. In the earlier video, the young lady there spent a lot of time talking about understanding your own values and what's important to you. Yeah.
Well, apart from that question, you know, I had multiple questions.
Sure.
So let me ask you, right? Because I think this would help a lot of people. So many people know that what they should do financially, we know, but we struggle with consistency. So how could somebody hold themselves accountable when trying to build better money habits? Because a habit is something that takes a long time to develop. So how do we hold ourselves accountable apart from an Excel sheet? Because if you're not consistent, you're not going to pay
Yes.
attention to the sheet.
Yes. Yeah. I have found that having an accountability partner works. Sometimes that could be a friend, sometimes it's a spouse, sometimes it's a professional, right? That you can connect with. I always tell persons in business, let's say you're a sole trader, to have a board. Now, typically sole traders don't have a board, right? But if you have a board of people, it could be 2 or 3 persons that you meet with on a regular. Some things are going to begin to happen, because once you have to prepare for that meeting, begin to ask yourself questions about what they are going to ask. What did you promise that you're going to do? So I think having that other helps, apart from whatever tools and apps and so forth that can help you stay on track. Having that other person, I think, is valuable. If you have a business, have some little board that can keep you accountable. All right, have that other person that you can trust in that way. For some persons, a spouse can be that person that helps to keep them. So it means having regular financial meetings. For those of you that are married, having a financial meeting to look at what's the state of the economy, what's the state of the nation, in the family, where we're at, what did we achieve, where do we need to improve on, and understanding that we all need to improve. There are ways to improve for all of us. So don't feel how that you have to report on mistakes, makes, or shortcomings. It's beautiful to do it because it helps encourage you to be a better you and achieve the goals in your life. So that's what I would say to that. Yeah.
Thank you. So Maya's question, I have a question about budgeting. Now, for a person who works and wants to start up a business for the first time, how do you budget yourself when just given a salary besides the Excel that you mentioned?
How do you budget for yourself? I don't think I'm getting the question, because I know the video went through all the various aspects of budgeting.
Yeah. So Maya, if you want to unmute
open the
and
mic?
elaborate.
Yes, please.
Maya, you there? Okay, well, when Maya unmutes, we will address that one. We have
Yes.
another question. As an investment of the company, development finance company
Finance, yes.
versus unit trust as safe investment for a mixed portfolio. Can you tell me about them?
Okay, well, when it comes to portfolio, again, this is something that requires a little bit more information, because one of the things that that we didn't cover, and I'm happy you asked it, is the whole question of risk tolerance, right? So your propensity to take risk influences the portfolio that you'll have, right? So for example, what's your name? Is it Jonathan that asked the question? Mr. Khan, right? So Mr. Khan, let's say I give you, I ask you for $20 borrow, right? There's the kind of person who, if they lend $20, right, they're gonna stay up whole night wondering about am I going to get that money back? They're pacing the floor, they're looking at the phone, should I call? Then there's the other person who will just wait. You understand? So one of the assessments, and there are tools where you can assess your risk tolerance. If you don't have one, I can share, right? So it places you in different categories, whether you're conservative or whether you're aggressive, right? Or moderate, right? Type of investor. And then you get a portfolio to treat with that in relation and connection to the goals that you have. So those are the things to look at when it comes to putting a portfolio together. So before I answer that, I will need to know that question. Now, of course, development finance have some fixed income instruments. I think they have TT and US as well. They have pretty decent rates. I am not in my office here, where I'm here now, that I'm represented. I cannot just recommend one over another, right? But I will say that both are reputable, right? There are different types of investments, so they can work together, because one is mutual fund. Now, I do not believe that any change has been made to it, but I do not believe mutual funds are covered by deposit insurance coverage, whereas the funds that development finance are covered, right? So it means there's a different level of risk there, which is supposed to imply that with the mutual funds, you can make much more money, whereas with Development Finance Corporation, you have set interest rates, right? But off the top, without understanding your goals and so forth, that's not a bad mix, right? And I would say mutual funds, I wouldn't necessarily say the unit trust, right? I would say mutual funds and development finance, it's a nice mix, yeah? So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so we have a couple of minutes for a few more questions. The end of the course, we have a quiz where you could go on and take the quiz as well and get your certificate. But we're going to do the quiz together. It's a couple questions. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time to ask before we jump to the quiz.
Hi, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning, sorry. I have a question. It's a little bit personal. If you have both a mortgage, a vehicle, and bills that is taking up about 85% of your salary, then what would you advise? I know adding income might just be like getting another business and that sort of thing, but that takes time. What would you advise? Some options.
Right.
Because the car is a loan as well. So you're paying for mortgage and the bills that comes with both of those.
Right. So I can't answer it directly, but I'll tell you some of the considerations. Some of the considerations will be purposes. Do you really need the loan? Is it critical? That's one question. If you have to liquidate the loan, is the vehicle in a position that you're going to make back, or you're going to still be owing? All right. Like say, for example, it was a brand new vehicle that held its value. For example, I bought a vehicle once and I sold it years ago for the same price. Years after, sorry, for the same price. It held the value. So based upon how critical it is, we can make adjustments to that loan situation. There are some situations where you can do a loan consolidation if you're looking for income. That's something the credit unions are well known for, where you can consolidate the loan, pay a lower loan amount for a longer period, but it frees up your income for other things that you might need, right? So those are some of the things you'd want to consider. But you're right, it's a personal question and kind of depends on what your goals are, what the loan is for, how long again you have in the loan, is it new? Of course, the mortgage would be longer, right? So those are things to answer. Now, there also I've had clients move their mortgages as well and gotten better deals. So all that may be an option, right? I've had clients who've benefited from changing the mortgage provider. Somebody else took over the mortgage. They were able to get a lower amount and get some income to do other things. So those are some things to consider there. Yeah, there's a tier. Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Yes.
All right.
Sure, no problem.
We want to jump into the quiz now. Mr. Rawle, if you want to share your contact in the chat, because I know a lot of people have questions. Someone is asking. So yeah, you can put it in the chat.
Okay, great. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, great. So we're going to jump into the quiz. Okay, so this is the last part after the videos. Like I said, we're gonna share the link so you guys can access it because there are other courses on the website as well. So we're gonna certify that we take all the lessons related to the quiz. That's the 3 videos we looked at. So the first question is, which of the following are types of income? If anybody wants to answer, feel free. No, I can't see the chat. So Mr. Rawle, if you wanna check the chat and see if anybody put in their answers in there.
Not seeing any answers in the chat. Okay,
All of the
somebody said
above. All of the above.
somebody said
Right.
E.
Okay, so the next one. Something expenses are necessary and unavoidable expenses, but the amount you have to pay can vary from month to month. Something expenses are those necessary and unavoidable expenses in which the amount you pay monthly does not vary.
Fixed.
Fixed and variable.
Fixed and variable.
If the amount could vary from month to month, I think
There's
it
an
would be
order. Yeah, get the order.
variable first and then fixed.
Yes.
What is a budget deficit? Anybody?
When
your expenses exceed your income.
All right.
When your
Correct.
expenses exceed.
Yeah, so
Correct.
that means the expenses end up being more than you are bringing in.
Correct.
All right. What is the first step you should take to fix a budget deficit?
Look at your discretionary spending.
Okay. So when I did the quiz the first time, I put that as well.
All
but
of the above.
All of the above.
The above.
So remember, you can't eliminate your fixed expense. Your fixed expenses are fixed expense. So I think what they're looking
Find
for is
ways to increase your income.
correct. I think that would be the answer.
And then it's the first step, first.
Yeah, correct. This protects financial resources in the event of an unplanned incident like a natural disaster or accident and insulates you from the financial impact of life events that can cause dire economic consequence.
Insurance.
All right. What is the difference between simple interest and compound interest?
Love E.
Principle.
Simple interest is calculated and paid on just the principal, whereas compound interest is calculated on both the principal and all of the previously accumulated interest earned.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
According to the rule of 72, you could divide 72 by the annual rate of return to receive a rough estimate of how many years it will take for a one-time investment to double. We did this, yes? For example, if Gloria invests $6,000 in an investment vehicle with an annual interest rate of 4%, how many years will it take for the investment to double? Taking you back to school.
18 years.
Right.
15.
Which of the following are investment vehicles?
All of the above?
Stock bonds.
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above, okay. Investment vehicles such as saving accounts and certificates of deposit have a higher risk than investments like bonds and stocks. Is that true?
False.
Smart investing requires that you choose investments according to the amount of time you can let the investment grow, time horizon, and risk tolerance, ability to withstand changes in the value.
True.
Almost done. When applying for credit, potential lenders look at the 3 C's to determine eligibility, which is capacity, character, and collateral. Which of the following describes the meaning of collateral?
An asset.
An asset pledged to the creditor.
Until the debt is paid off.
Certain financial goals won't help in overcoming negative influences towards making smart money decisions.
False. False.
False.
Outside factors influence how we think about money.
All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah, community. All of the above.
Yeah. Oh.
And which of the following is not one of the 6 strategies to modify behavior regarding money?
Community.
Remember, your community could influence you.
Yes.
What about outreach?
You're right.
Outreach.
The use of a calendar to keep track of behaviors you want to eliminate is an example of which strategy?
Hello? Yes, hello?
Did we say all of the above? Monitoring.
All of the above.
Monitoring. Calendar.
Which one you guys think it is?
Monitoring.
I think it's monitoring.
Monitoring.
All right. So we're gonna submit your certificate. Let's see if we get any wrong. Oh, we got all right. So when you do the course, it'll come up just like this, and you could put in your information. So let's put the EHub, and we could put small business workshop. Right. And then you put in your email. And they're going to email you the certificate. You can download it, add it to your LinkedIn, anything you want to do. Right. So they ask all these things. You could put in, let's just put, right, your country. Do you want to receive updates from the Wildlife Network? Yes. And then you submit, and they are going to email you your certificate. So you could check out the EHub website for all the information, all the links. You'll get a recording of the session today on the website as well. So you see, you get your certificate. It's going to be emailed, right? So this is the website. On the top of the screen is the Young Leaders of the Americas initiative, and there are lots of courses. Let me show you. Hold on. And they're all free, right? So if you go on wildlife.state.gov online courses, you'll see a lot of courses. So there's strategies for people and resources, business expansion, personal growth. They're just like it's just like how this one was today, with videos and a quiz at the end and a certificate. And there are a lot.
Is there age limit to all the courses?
No, it's open. It's open. Okay. This is the one we did today, personal money management.
Thank you.
Yes. So there are a lot that you could access. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. You could reach out to us if you have anything. Mr. Rawle shared his info in the chat as well. Yeah, so does anybody have any questions?
I would have joined in late. Sorry, good day, everyone. I would have joined a bit late, so I didn't get the information concerning Mr. Rawle, as in where he operates from and how could we reach out to him and stuff like that.
Okay, I'm gonna post it back in the group, in the chat. Sorry, I saw it.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Sure.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Khan.
It has been an excellent presentation. We are very thankful for you all taking the time off to have us here. And definitely we'll do some follow-ups. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody's asking about the certificates. No, you could work on your own time. That's the beauty of it. So you could go on there and check out all the courses available. We like doing them together because, you know, and we have a nice guest speaker here who could shed some more info, because when you do the course by yourself, yes, you get the info, but having somebody really apply it to our local economic environment. It really helps. So if anybody wants to add anything, Mr. Rawle, if you want to add anything, feel free.
Sure. I think at the end of the day, I would want to encourage everybody here to know yourself. Know yourself, you know. Remember, we talk about knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. One of the things that you have to know is yourself. And one of the things we didn't get the time to get into would be what is called your financial blueprint. And everybody has a financial blueprint that determines your money attitude and your money personality. And sometimes the struggle that I've seen is that people know they have information, but they're fighting with this blueprint, right? This attitude impacts things like security and power and freedom and generosity, all these things that deal with how you actually deal with money and how you resist some of the temptations with consumerism, right? And your money personality speaks to whether you're a saver or a spender, you are a builder, you are a giver, you know? So it's important to understand that. Understand what become self-aware, right? So that you get tuned into when you're overspending or when you're oversaving or even when you're overgiving. Some people just give it all away, right? Self-awareness and accountability work hand in hand. And at the end of the day, self-discipline is the fuel that drives financial success. So I would encourage you to continue to explore, continue to research, continue to write and make notes. Know your numbers. Very important. Get to know your numbers. Everywhere that you have money, what are you earning on it? If you're in a bank account, if you're in a credit union, wherever you are, and keep tracking it, know your numbers. Know what inflation is, so you could beat inflation. If your inflation is outpacing the rate of the return that you're getting, then you need to get a better return. So of course, one of the questions is, what is inflation? That's another number. What are the time frames you're working with? That's another number. Is it 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 20? All these numbers, get to know all your numbers, right? So with that, I wish you all the best, and thanks a lot for being here. This is a great initiative, and all the best for the future. Yeah. Thanks, Ms. Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Rawle. Thank you for having us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for shedding all this light on things we thought we know, but we really needed a lot more information. Guys, if you want to join the WhatsApp group, the link is in the chat. Feel free to join the EHub community. It's a growing community. We're over 2,000 members and growing. So we will share the link in the WhatsApp group. It's in your email as well, ehubtt.org. Feel free to join the platform. It is free. And thank you guys for being here, and we hope to see you for the next session.
Thank you very much.